Good morning, everyone. Good evening for some of you. Thanks for joining us today for this strategic discussion, and hopefully it's informative for moving on-prem to cloud computing. Whether you're in the planning stages of your process, your proof of concept, migration phases, or in your governance state, we'll do our best to taper the conversation to your benefit. I'm Katrina Phillips. I'm going to be your facilitator today, and Frederick Parker is also in the room with me. We're going to be monitoring the chat throughout. So if you have any questions, this is a strategic discussion. We definitely want you to raise your hand if you have any questions, or drop those in chat, and we'll be sure that we get those answered before the session's over or even post. And then also, I guess, maybe a little background on me. I am new to Virtual Tech Gurus. I'm a customer success manager here, and I'm on my second month, just about. I came from Microsoft as an endpoint management and deployment specialist, and specialized in cloud migrations from on-prem. So definitely excited for what we're going to learn today. I think that we have a very, very good facilitator today, Vipin Nair. He has over 24 years of experience in the IT industry with companies like Dell EMC, VMware, RSA, and Global Wipro. So he has a wealth of knowledge spanning from different domains, including compute, storage, network, and security. So I think that you're definitely going to go away with some good information, and we're going to pop in some polls throughout, hopefully that you can maybe guide us on where the information needs to be in your favor. First and foremost, we want to know how you're feeling today. We want to make sure we have everybody percolating with us. If you want to drop that, if you can, Fred. I think we've got our first question. And then if you could, Vipin, maybe drop the second poll after slide 5. For cloud computing.
All right.
And I'm going to pass it over to you, Vipin, right now. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I hope you benefit.
Thank you, Katrina. Am I audible?
Yes, you're good.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So thank you so much for a fantastic introduction, Katrina. Really, really appreciate that. And as Katrina really mentioned here, that this is going to be more of a strategic discussion. So we would like to have more of participation from your end. So your mics would be unmuted. You can, have the questions directly being asked. If you feel that you need to, kind of pause me during the conversations, you can definitely, and then, it's a win-win for both of us when it have, open dialogue between us when we talk about this, moving from on-premises to cloud. And in fact, we will also touch base on something on reverse journey as well. So with that, let's kick off this. I would be covering some of the aspects of the advantages of the cloud and how we can kind of build a resilient future, and a little bit about the hybrid cloud strategies. Many of the organizations are looking into, not true on-prem, not true cloud, but more of hybrid cloud strategies. And how do we go from a legacy to the leading edge from a digital transformation perspective? And a little bit touch basing on how we put these things together from a cloud migration perspective. That's kind of, next 50 minutes or something what we are going to cover. And I hope this would definitely bring some of the insights into the points I have mentioned here on the screen, right? Please feel free to stop me anytime if you feel that you have a question. We would be happy to have a conversation rather than just going through slides after slides, right? So the first one from the agenda, what we have seen, or the objective, what we have seen, how do we leverage some of the insightful approaches for driving business growth, right? I pretty much wanted to start off with, you guys all heard about digital disruption, right? So most of the businesses, what I see, is kind of going through a lot of change in the technological trends, kind of adopting various, technologies and the processes, in fact, to stay competitive, because the market is so competitive, and a transformation is the need of the hour, right? If you look at from the post-COVID things, right? So a lot of changes in the way people consume technology. There's a lot of reasons for going into digital transformation. And a lot of automations comes into a play, right? They're bringing in a lot of efficiency. One of the major fact in digital transformation is also reducing the cost. And at the end of the day, we just need to make sure that we have a total customer experience or a customer satisfaction. And it's a world of data, right? Because there are tons of data available, and customers think that, or our clients think that, okay, they are ready for AI, but that's not the fact, right? They're not even ready with the data what they have. So we will touch base on some of the intelligence what we bring in from virtual tech gurus through a ZENfra platform. How do you take this from a data lake perspective, kind of churn that data and kind of standardize it, normalize it for your digital transformation and your cloud migration journey, right? So what exactly digital transformation? So it's kind of using the technology to drive business growth and sustainability, right? And it's kind of helping organization to enable or kind of go into ever-changing demands of the modern customer world. That's pretty much for the sake of this conversation today. So I'm kind of turning off my camera so I can focus on the content what I have to deliver today. Hope that that's okay with all of you, right? So let me turn off my camera. Yeah, so then I have some notes over here, so I can even look at those notes as well. And one of the aspects of digital transformation is around cloud computing. So that's the main topic for today, right? Of course, we will touch base something around AI, ML, what sort of capability is going to bring in. And of course, I lived for about 7 to 8 years in cybersecurity world, leading RSA, 𝐂𝐤𝐿 theater. So I have some of the insights to share about how security comes into play when it comes to this kind of adoption. And then, of course, the world of automation. You might be seeing through your social media platforms and everywhere. It's all about automation. It's all about making your life easier through various tools available, so-called AI tools, to make your life easier, right? So that's where we see a lot of trends in 2024 and beyond. So what exactly is the cloud computing, right? It's kind of businesses can access data and applications securely over the internet. That's in a very simple term, if you look at it, right? So they don't need to maintain the large data centers. They can maintain their servers and applications into a hyperscalers, which is available through AWS, Azure, you name it, right? Google Cloud, Oracle, Alibaba. So many options are available these days when it comes to kind of cloud computing side of the world, right? And of course, lot of these migration journey. I'll talk about a little bit about what should be our strategy, right? How AI and artificial intelligence or data-driven methodologies will help you to navigate through the journey of your cloud adoption, right? And then probably I'll talk about a little bit about the migrations as well. Now, what is cloud computing? So I just want to take a pause here and ask anybody in the room, if you really want to, from the context setting what we have done so far, if you want to put simply what you think cloud computing, or do you have a different perspective here? You can go on unmute if you wish. I'm not seeing the chat though, so if you want to put something around the chat, maybe Katrina or Fred can read it out for us. If you think that, if you want to, we just want to make it more interactive and more collaborative in nature, the session, rather than just, because many things what I'm going to talk about it, pretty much everybody is aware of it. So the idea of this webinar is to put some structure to it, make all your understanding, which is dispersed in different manner, to put together a structure to it and formalize a strategy for you to think about your cloud adoption. That's the objective of this webinar today, to be honest. Anyone? Okay, I hear a perfect silence there, so I'll move on.
I'm monitoring over here, Vipin. I'm not seeing anything just yet. We'll probably drop a poll here in just a minute.
All right, okay, so I'm on the 5th slide now, so maybe I'll just walk through the cloud computing. I just briefed about what exactly the cloud computing is all about, but let me give you a little bit of bookish perspective of cloud computing. It's a term used to describe the delivery of on-demand computing resources. When I say on-demand, as and when you require, right? Pay-per-use or pay-per-grow model sort of a thing, right? It includes all your hardware, storage, databases, networking, software, and it's not just about these devices, right? It's all about the business and the individuals, right? So we are all connected in this ecosystem through the great technology called internet, right? And basically it enables organizations to access and store information without managing their own physical devices and IT infrastructure in their data center. And if you look at from the growth of cloud computing, the amount of data generated and shared, it's going to increase forever, right? Petabytes of data, right? Is cloud is an answer for keeping all those data? That's where we'll talk a little bit about the hybrid, because sometimes what happens if you don't strategize it very well, if you don't have clear vision about how you want to go for your cloud journey, it becomes more expensive for you because you'll have tons of data going and sitting there and you will be paying for it, right? Whereas some of those informations, which we can talk about cloud burst and other things when we touch base on the migration journey, right? Yeah, so then there are different ways you can think about cloud computing. So it's just not about public alone. So you can have your data center kind of formalized into a cloud method, and then you can have different functions, kind of, we can have a chargeback mechanism. So you can think of public, private, you hear all these terms, right? Hybrid cloud deployments, basically service level models, what we can think of. It gives you a lot of flexibility, control, and the management, what you need, right? It could be infrastructure as a service, right? Because of your base components like compute storage, networking, virtualization. Then you can think of a platform as a service. It's more around hardware and software resources needed for cloud application development, right? Basically for developers, or maybe some of the application which you want to build on top of it, what the hyperscalers provides you, or maybe end-to-end software as a service like Office 365, right? So you don't need to maintain or managing all of these things. It would be the responsibility of the underlying provider. So that's the beauty of cloud computing, right? So I'll not drag here because everybody knows about it. But of course, and it has got pros and cons. So I just put some of the aspects here. It's kind of faster time to market. See, many of the organizations, think about small, medium business, right? Their procurement journey, their investments, the funding for IT infrastructure can even take time, right? But there is an answer for it. So if you have a cloud computing, you can faster your time to market, right? You can spin up your new instances or retire them in seconds, or allowing developers to accelerate our development modules, because you may have seasonal approaches, right? So you may have to develop something which is really required at the point of time to capture the more market. So you can think of having those kind of an environment. Maybe you want to have a development environment running in the cloud, and then you can decommission as the development done, or maybe prototyping for that matter, right? So cloud computing supports lots of innovation, right? It's just not about keeping your resilient data there. You can use it for innovation, because then you can create your own silos in that, and then you can give your responsible team to go ahead and do the innovations, right? So, and make more ideas into designs and applications, without having hardware limitations, because you don't need to worry about your procurement cycles, what happens in a traditional IT data center, right? Scalability and flexibility. It gives you more flexibility. You can grow up and down, scale up, scale out, scale down, right? So whatever ways it is, you can clearly see how the cost is going, right? Typical CapEx versus OpEx. You can truly go into the OpEx model for the consumption, what you do, for the services, what you obtain from, providers, right? One other thing I like about cloud computing more is collaboration. It kind of gives you the data available anywhere you need it, right? Irrespective of whether you are local or globally set up organization. So it gives you that platform to do a lot of collaboration, right? Instead of tying up to a location specific device or people, it gives you that kind of a flexibility. And of course, we'll talk about advanced security. There's a lot of people worried about the security. A lot many aspects about security when we talk about compliance, regional centric compliance, or maybe some of the policies from a country specific reasons why companies may not want to put some of their data into cloud, right? But cloud also gives a lot of advanced level security to make sure that your data is kind of secure, right? And data loss prevention. You can have a great set of backup and disaster recovery plans, right? Maybe an organization is kind of building up, and they may have their primary center, but they really don't have a backup or disaster recovery place to keep all the data. So cloud can be an answer for it without much investments for it, right? So why we need to switch? I clearly mentioned about the OpEx advantages than the CapEx, right? So you can trade fixed expenses, which is your, kind of CapEx, to a more of variable methodology of your spend, right? Economies of scale, right? You can, as I said, you can embrace any technologies, latest of technologies, best of the, solutions available in the hyperscalers, right? So it gives you that advantage of having economies of scale, right? And and at a lower variable cost, right? So you can define the terms how you want to consume these, right? Different models, pricing models, right? So that's something, and you don't need to guess for the capacity if you look at it, right? So many times what happens, many of the organization, when you do the IT infrastructure planning, a lot of guesswork also happens. Okay, this business is going to grow in this way, so we need to procure, say, X amount of servers and storage capacity, which would be underutilized in your on-premises environment, and that would eat up, and then probably you would be kind of kind of depreciating those assets, really not being used full-fledged, right? So resources are not being utilized optimally. And look at the future value of money for that matter, right? So you might be spending something today thinking that, okay, let me do all those investment today, but then look at the $100 would be, what is it, $100 maybe 2 years down the line. So the future value of money is something which really drive the investment work, opportunity cost, right? So many of the companies really don't want to spend the money on IT infrastructure in their own premises, used as an opportunity cost for many of the other inventions or research and development in their organization, right? Speed and agility, right? It is pretty fast. Things are with just one click away, kind of dramatically increase your agility for the organization, right? And maintenance, right? So tech refresh. So after 4 years of time or 3 years, or depends on the standard warranty and other things, you may have to go for, kind of, upgrading these environment, tech refresh, right? So you may have to retire some of the old technologies, legacy environments, what we have. So all these things have been taken care. And the beauty of all of these, you are a global, infrastructure company when you think of having a cloud infrastructure rather than just having a regional centric approach, right? Okay, so I think I missed the poll, Katrina. So before I go into the cons, do you really want to pull up the poll? My bad. I was in that flow.
No problem. No problem. I was sitting back here waiting patiently. We did launch another poll, and we'll have a final probably here at the end, if that's okay.
Yep.
So feel free to pop in and plug in your answers. It will give a percentage on results, but it will not indicate who answered what to which question. So please feel free to answer. And again, use the hand feature, the raise your hand feature here in Teams if you have a question or you want to contribute something, and we'll continue to monitor the chat. Thanks, Vipin.
All right. Am I good to continue or should I wait?
Maybe just give it a minute. It's
Okay.
it's not a very big poll. It's just a few questions, and feel free to the audience, for anyone who's attending, if you want to, add input in text, you're able to do that, or we can send you some questions afterwards. So maybe just after this minute, Vipin, we can go ahead and pick back up. It shouldn't take too long to answer.
All right.
And the goal of, go ahead.
No, I'll continue. Sorry.
I was going to say that the primary goal here, right, is just to kind of find out where you are in your journey for digital transformation. If you're looking at something from a server perspective or from a workflow perspective, if there's specifics around strategy or the security piece or scalability or budget, we want to know what is most beneficial for you to know to go ahead and proceed with your digital transformation. So we're just trying to understand like where everybody is in their process and their environment today.
Yep. And, feel free to use this time if you have any questions, if you want to speak up, because we just want to make it more interactive. You may have a different perspective. You may have to add on something what I just mentioned. Just want to make it more interactive and collaborative. So feel free to unmute yourself and then ask any questions what you have, or you want to add something on top of it what I shared as an additional knowledge, because it's a community what we want to share with, right? So
I just thought of a question. I'd like to know how many people are WebEx or Teams or Zoom comfortable. Maybe we'll throw that in there at the end. Just for future sessions, right? To understand like what everybody's comfortable using.
Yeah. All right, shall I proceed?
Go right ahead.
Okay, because I'm not seeing the poll because I'm sharing the screen. So I just want to ensure that, so I'm not interrupting the flow there.
You're good, Vipin.
All right, cool. All right, so now let's look at the limitations, right? So all these advantages, what we heard, but there are, of course, pros and cons for everything, right? So here are the cons I can think of, right? So you kind of get into vendor lock-in, though there are companies provide seamless, bring your own licenses and things like that, but still there is a way, to an extent, we get vendor lock-in, right? And people are worried about the security risk because you're putting your data into someone else's platform, right? Which probably you may not have end-to-end control, though there are measures to say it, but at the end of the day, the data is sitting in someone else's place, right? So, and then probably concerns about integration complexity. You may have tons of applications, something which would work. You may have some legacy application which probably you want to integrate with that integration complexity, because these platforms would drive you the latest of the technologies. Legacy can become more complex. And then, say for example, if you have an older platform which is running maybe from mainframe days, right? So, and you want to have an L2 network connectivity to your cloud environment, right? Maybe if you're thinking of a hybrid cloud, can really make some differences, right? Or maybe some of the form factors, right? So what you have currently, when I say form factors, it could be in any form factors. That could probably a challenging situations for you. Maybe the compatibility issues could be 32-bit, 64-bit. And without a proper strategy, if you really go into cloud adoption, then it can lead into many of these issues what you may foresee, and can bring down your data, your availability of your business, continuity of your business, and probably unforeseen costs. At the end of the day, though it gives you reports about how you are spending, but then it could be possible that you didn't expect that kind of a bill at the end of the month, right? So unexpected expenses. So all sort of things can really lead into the cons factor of the cloud computing. And look at this resiliency, right? A lot of misunderstanding about the way we think resiliency, right? I just want to bring up something from McKinsey's cloud resiliency work, and then kind of identified some of the pitfalls, right? So when the business leader is thinking about considering application resiliency, basically it's a failure to understand the resiliency roles and responsibility, right? A cloud services provider probably will operate to an extent from a resiliency perspective with different distinct roles, but the ownership still lies with the person who is putting the data into the cloud environment, right? The responsibility for the reliability, though the CSPs provide that, but then it's important factor for us to be responsible, owning that piece, an accountable person for your reliability and resiliency of your environment, which is running in there. It's just not about passing the ball to the cloud computer providers, right? So you still need to make sure that you have everything which is there, to make sure that you can recover any situations, and you have a continuity of your business, right? So clients are responsible architecting reliability, security, overall resiliency of their workloads hosted in the cloud. That's basically what I just want to highlight here. It's just not about thinking that, okay, I put all my data into cloud and they'll take care of everything from an end-to-end perspective, right? So high availability, your fault tolerance, your disaster recovery plans, and that includes your MTTR or maybe recovery time objective and other things, right? Recovery point objective. There are providers gives you these kind of with different payment plans with different RTOs and different RPO levels. But at some time, your architect or your organization people, or maybe a successful vendor or a partner who's going to help you in that journey to define these parameters for your tier 1 applications or mission critical applications for your business continuity. Okay. So look at the 5 main actions what architect needs to think about when you think about resilient cloud applications, right? Identify and update application tiers and revisit any key performance metrics, right? When now my experience I can talk about when I talk to the various businesses and application owners, every single application owner thinks that, okay, my application is the tier 1 application, right? And that's where the challenge comes in. A lot of effort needs to go in place to identify what are those mission critical applications for a situation what if the our customer or a business is kind of going to face if a worst situation happens, right? So, and then mapping those applications and servers and other things to that, right? And putting those in probably in a cloud environment from a resiliency perspective, right? Because it can give you more recovery time because you don't need to depend on your IT staff, which is in your data center. So you can have better recovery times if you clearly identify your tier 1 mission critical applications and putting that into cloud, the resilient perspective. And then look at from a resiliency patterns, right? So applications, so combination of prescribed infrastructure and application platforms, right? So that's what I was referring to patterns, right? So it requires a lot of assessment how each application architecture can enable infrastructure resiliency, right? To meet your resiliency targets. Business critical. So there are, tier 1 is nothing but your mission critical applications. Tier 2 is nothing but your business critical application, right? So those kind of things. And then kind of tailoring those reference architecture to application tiers, right? So many of the times, we go by intuition that, okay, these are the applications without even referring some of the equally, say, for example, banking, right? There could be reference architecture which be done successfully by maybe another bank or maybe another industry of the similar kind. There could be a lot of reference architect can refer to and then build a cohesive, very resilient application tiers which operates in a similar way, right? So reference architecture is very important factor which is validated, right? So maybe there are vendors, partners can give you those reference architecture for making your journey in identifying applications better, because then it requires a lot of application owners interviews, having the right tools to identify what are those applications which is available for you to keep it into cloud, right? And then prioritize the right level of resiliency, right? So what are those cloud first workloads which needs to be there, right? And those kind of things. And then have a roadmap, right? That starts with the top tier application. So and then define your KPIs around it, key performance indicators to better track progress and prioritize your work based on the value, business value, right? This sort of thing. All right, so I'll take a pause here. Do you have any questions, comments, thoughts on resiliency?
Yeah, so I'm just going to pipe in with a question here, Vipin, and certainly I noticed that you did tie this into industry, but certainly for the question, I think you can identify this really well as well. Basically, the question is, can you share characteristics of businesses that benefit most from incorporating cloud solutions into their business? So, for example, business sizes, the vertical, events within the business, particular goals and objectives, and what they're trying to accomplish.
So one of the use cases I have come across is the seasonal. So that's easier because I'm looking at the audience, because there could be some people would be really from the technology side, could be somebody from the leadership side. So think about in United States you have Black Fridays or those kind of things. You have more selling, maybe Christmas season. So or maybe think about this Netflix sort of the world, right? It's all very seasonal. You have vacations, spring off. People will spend more time, during that time to watch more things or maybe spend more time in shopping, right? So that's where the subscription model comes into a play, pay as you grow. You can go up and down. You don't really need to have a great set of infrastructure sitting there and, kind of your data center eating up your space, cooling, electricity, whatnot, right? Rather, you can have those kind of a thing into cloud. And once the season is over, you can get the data back into your on-premises for next whatever time frame you're looking at. That's one of the use cases I can think of, and an immediate answer for it. Another thing is that probably you really want to keep your web servers. You just want to have, latency could be another issue. What many people have their data center locally there, and somebody wants to access it across the region. So you can have those, web servers running in cloud environment. So you can, attract more traffic without much latency, and then probably, and then you can connect back to an L2 VPN through. I'll talk about a little bit more around unified cloud management. Various providers or OEMs gives you at this days, where you have a seamless experience of managing your on-premises as well as your cloud environment, right? So those kind of use cases I can think of top of my mind, keeping whole audience in my mind as an answer to it. Sounds okay?
Yeah, that's good. I think we can tap on that further a little bit later on.
Yep, sure. All right, so now look at maximizing the cloud value and stability, right? So, I kind of put some value preservations and strategic cloud migration for enhanced stability, optimizing cloud resilience patterns for business needs, and kind of migrating, transition tier 1 workloads to the cloud, right? So I kind of touched based on all these kind of things in the previous conversations. But if there are any specific questions, I can happily kind of take that and then answer those. Yeah. I will also kind of give you a little bit of survey, what I kind of gathered. Very few companies are kind of move their critical business applications to the cloud. The survey conducted for various executives from various layers. I don't want to really name the honor of that survey for whatever reasons maybe. It is for all the world largest organizations. But 10% have successfully moved their mission critical and business critical process and workload to tier 1 to cloud, right? The kind of confining their cloud migration to less critical apps at this point, that's a trend what we've seen. But they miss out the significant value that return can be significantly less that would be on the tier 1 workloads, right? So I mean, still it's a journey, though we say that a lot of cloud computing, but if you look at it, about 10% of the workload, I'm talking about mission critical and business critical application, for the factors what I just mentioned about the cons of the cloud computing, right? That's where we have seen that. But then having a very good, I also mentioned about less critical applications, and I think Skip also on the line. So we kind of talk a lot about FinOps capabilities. I'll touch base a little bit around the FinOps as well. How we as an organization can help you with the, intelligence what we have within our systems with the FinOps capabilities to help you to navigate through, and then kind of gets that balancing act. What needs to go into cloud? What needs to go into on-premises? How do you kind of balance your expenses and cost around that? So we also have a series of sessions around it. So it's a good idea. You can watch out for the emails coming in from the team around various webinars which is lined up in the future as well, to talk more deeper into specific areas. This is more of a giving a high level overview of it, but then watch out for the space where you are getting emails and you can really get benefit out of deeper insights about FinOps and other things. Anybody wants to add on anything what I just mentioned, Trina or Skip?
I'll let Skip speak up here in just a second, but one thing I will mention is that we are going to be publishing a series of webinars probably over the next 2 months between April and May. And it really is sort of taking a different lens look at FinOps and really what we're seeing as far as a trending standpoint. So if you're interested in those things, maybe just give us a thumbs up or a hands up, or just say, opt in here in the chat so that we can start including you on these sessions as they roll out. We're sort of building out content as we see the need shape. with the customers who are attending these webinars and educational series. So if you'll let us know, we'll include you on what's coming in the future so that we can give you a little bit more in-depth understanding of financial operations. Thank you.
Yeah,
Skip,
I think when choosing on-prem versus cloud, one of the most important things is understanding and characterizing your usage patterns, as Vipin said, as well as understanding the criticality of latency in your application stack. There may be an application that is not very susceptible to latency or can handle a little bit of latency, think like a CRM application or something that's sort of passive, but something that's very active and very, very highly transactional and latency related, might be something where you might want to look more on-prem than in the cloud. But, there's a whole lot of things that go into that decision. And that's part of the assessment process that we go through.
Precisely. Thank you, Skip. Thank you, Katrina. Moving on, types of cloud migrations. I think Skip was just kind of touch basing on that. When you think about cloud migration, it could be any of these things, what you see on the screen. It could be cloud to cloud migrations, right? So maybe one vendor to another vendor you want to move on, or maybe a complete data center migrations, right? So they really want to exit out of, they may have a cloud first strategy. Some of the small, medium customers would really love to have a complete cloud first strategy, right? And many of the large enterprises, what we have seen that they kind of adopt the hybrid cloud migration methodology rather than having, concentrating either on the on-premises or cloud, right? So, and then multi-cloud migrations. Maybe you may have an environment, so you really don't want to limit yourself into one particular vendor. Maybe you see some of the capabilities in AWS. You really want to have some of your workloads running in with those extensive capability what AWS provides. Maybe something you want to do in Azure, or even for that matter, you wanted to balance the cost. Maybe when it comes to pricing model, maybe something would be expensive, something would be cheaper. So you will do all those comparisons and you kind of build your strategies about what type of migrations we are really looking at, right? That's again a choice, and that's again what Skip mentioned about it's just not a decision. Okay, I really want to go into one hyperscaler, but what really matters a lot, what kind of data you have in your infrastructure, what kind of discovery you have done, what kind of analysis you have done, what kind of application dependency mapping and server mapping you have done, right? Where it can go with maximum benefit out of it. That's where the discovery, analysis, and planning comes into the migration journey. And then a migration is just a piece of work, what we need to do task by task. But the entire effort and exercise and the pain goes into the planning stage, and finally designing how you want to really have a robust environment for your business needs, right? And your IT strategy, to be honest. Okay, so let's get into hybrid cloud a little bit. So I'm sure everybody heard of this hybrid cloud from the conversation what we have done, or you might be already working on this. Basically nothing but on-premises infrastructure and cloud services together working, right? So I really want to touch base a little bit because everybody knows these terms very well. But what are those integration strategies, right? It's if you really think of a hybrid cloud, what are the top 5 things you really need to consider, right? One is data consistency. Your data is consistent across, and it's compatible between on-premises and cloud systems. Because if the data flow is not that seamless, then you will have, issues which you need to figure it out how to solve it. And you also need to think about what sort of a network connectivity, right? You can talk about the best of the world of hybrid cloud, but then if you don't really have a great network connectivity, right, or robust networking solutions, just to make sure that you have a secure and efficient communication between these environments. Then comes in application compatibility, right? Can I have some of those applications running in my cloud versus my on-premises? I'll have a compatibility issue. Can they really talk, right? And security measures, right? So because you may have a hardening done in your on-premises environment, you may not be able to do that kind of a thing probably in a cloud environment. Is this feasible for you to do to reach the same security measures what you're doing in on-premises as well as cloud? And maybe what are those best of the breeds what we have from a security standpoint which you can implement it to make it more secure platform for you to work, right? And workload placement, right? What kind of workload? When I say workload, server, right? What kind of workload needs to be based on the performance, compliance, and cost considerations? Where do you really want to place that? And honestly speaking, it is not about having hybrid cloud, maybe something running in cloud or on premises. It's all, the art is all about balancing. Right? How do you balance between these two environments? Right? So that's where accessing your workload sustainability, suitability, and sustainability, cloud busting, which I mentioned about, data consistency, streamlining management, and probably you may have an orchestration layer. You may have a software-defined data center running, and how is your provisioning goes through, right? Is it seamless? Do you have challenges in orchestration layer? What do you have in your on-premises and cloud? Can you establish that orchestration layer without any concerns or challenges with a unified management layer on top of it? Right? That's something which you can think about. And of course, cost and performance, right? And at the end, what you need is flexibility and scalability, right? You need to have resiliency, you need to have best of the redundancy capability, right? Cost optimizations. And these are the things what I would think from an integration perspective when you think of having a hybrid cloud strategy. Yeah. Now, I briefly touched upon hybrid cloud management, right? So I came from VMware background. So there's something you might have heard of, VMware Cloud Foundations, or you might have heard about VMC on AWS, VMware Cloud on AWS, right? Or Azure. So the beauty of these kind of unified hybrid cloud management, even Dell talks about, right? So the biggest challenge most of these companies when they think of hybrid cloud is training their resources. Imagine that the business is running with AWS, Azure, in your on-premise environment. You may have co-location, right? You may have edge locations where you might be sharing some of the space with companies like Equinix and other, vendors who is giving you rack and space for having it. So imagine that you have 10 different interfaces to manage. There's nothing, a single pane of glass. That's where the companies are now focusing on. If you think of a hybrid cloud strategy, how can I help my customer to have a seamless experience, to have a unified interface, so the customer, even when they are operating in AWS or Azure or any of the hyperscalers on premises, their experience, customer experience or the user experience is same, right? Otherwise, you have to spend quite a lot of money in terms of spending them, upskilling them on various technologies to look at their management layer and make them, and there could be a lot of errors, right? Because somebody's looking at AWS environment to manage their application layers versus you have in on-premises. Human errors can lead into big cost for the organization. So that's where I would say unified cloud management environment is very critical for somebody thinking of a hybrid cloud management system, right? And I also talked about network connectivity. And these days, you hear a lot about serverless computing, containerization, right? So does your platform, so maybe Kubernetes platform, orchestration, so you may have to run some of those things through a container. Can your on-premises and your cloud environment have a seamless exchange between? You may have to run some containers here, your on-premise environment, and some in cloud environments. What is the capability where, when you think of futuristic perspective on containerization, right? Of course, virtualization is the beauty of this entire thing, what we are talking about, be it on-premises or cloud, right? So these are the building blocks when you think of hybrid cloud. So do you have a great network connectivity? Do I need to spend time and effort in building, upskilling my team to have a unified cloud management experience? When it comes to containerization, modernization, where do I stand with my on-premise and cloud environment? And what is my strategy about having more of physical servers changing into virtualized servers, right? So where I can have more resourcefulness. So these are the building blocks I can think of from a hybrid cloud perspective. A legacy to leading edge, right? And I know, Skip, you love this topic a lot from a cloud economics perspective, and you're a champion in it. So please pitch in if you feel that there are areas where you want to just contribute. But yeah, so let's understand what is cloud economics, right? So it's kind of kind of helps you to study your financial impact in cloud computing, right? Such as legacy, hardware investment, your multi-cloud service budgeting, your projected savings due to better collaboration and technical innovations, what you have, right? It kind of helps you to assess your organization better. That's what I would say cloud economics, right? As you know, that a lot of business leaders now talk about cloud migration. It seems like, yeah, that's the obvious kind of a choice for everybody in this kind of an era or a world, right, where we are living in. But to be honest, there's nothing called one size fit for all the strategy, right? You really need to have, as I said, the word before, balancing. If you really don't have a balancing act, then it can go here and there. And so that's where really cloud economics comes into the play, right? So what is exactly it talks about? Your total cost ownership, your efficiency improvements, your operation resiliency and operational agility, right? So, and then many, when I interact with many of the customers, and they may have biases. So when I say that at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? So we kind of have prone to have biases, right? So probably some staff would be locked to a legacy application, so simply resistant, kind of change resistant to new technology. Really, people don't want to go out of their comfort zone to go and observe the latest of the technologies, right? Probably they may not be aware of it. Self-awareness can be a problem, right? So, and that's where cloud economics comes in. If you have a, we'll talk a little bit about it, right? So that's where the objective of BTG or ZENfra as a tool comes into play. We can kind of eradicate all these biases, your self-awareness issues, or maybe what are those technologies available, what kind of savings you can do, what kind of risk and reward you have, right? What kind of risk you are currently have in your current environment, what is the reward you can get it out? Because if you have the criteria of the culture of the organization, the budgetary requirements, your technical expertise can all comes into play if you don't have a really crafted, curated cloud economics philosophy there. So, and then probably you may have to shift some of the processes, what you have in the way the core business is thriving right now. And just to summarize it, cloud economics is nothing but the study of the cost, your resource, how it is being used, what kind of impact your cloud, your platform has it. And so that's where this comes into a play, and a lot of efficiency. When I talk about you heard about a word called wastage, right? Cloud wastage, right? So if you have a really good with the help of DevOps environment, a strong DevOps environment with a greater collaboration, you can really optimize the way your infrastructure is there. So that's where the importance of these kind of terms or digital disruptions comes into a play, where clearly we can have a well-defined responsibilities, automatic data integration to applications with a lot of self-service analytics, right? It gives you that efficiency for you to take your decisions and insight. Operational agility, right? You can everything is a click away, so you can think of what value it is going to give it, right? And then kind of make those tweaks and changes in a very agile fashion. All right, I talked about reduce the total cost of ownership, savings on intangible things what you have in your, not always about tangible assets, right? It's a lot of intangible assets what you carry in your organization. So what is that OPEX versus CAPEX? How you can scale, your environment. So I wanted a little bit touch on the intangibles again. Have you ever wondered that how much of time and effort is put in by your IT staff in maintaining the task or keeping that subscription licenses, right? That time is the essence, right? Time is the money, right? So you may have a problematic server and you'll be spending quite a lot of time in trying to fix that, right? And that's where I see that a lot of intangible benefit what cloud offers you, so that your IT staff can focus on your strategy, how they want to better it each time, rather than focusing on this mundane task what they have, which can be pretty much taken care by your hyperscalers, right? So That's where the value comes in when it comes to total cost of ownership. Because when you think of total cost of ownership, it's not about the cost of the equipments what you have. It's also about the time and effort what is being put up by your resources as well, right? So, all right. So now this is the last segment which I wanted to have it, data-driven approach, your cloud migration strategy, right? So, and if you look at, what is your business strategy? So a couple of things you need to really look at it when you think of data-driven organization. So one is about the culture within the organization to have relying upon the data-driven, capabilities, right? Accordingly, strategize your transition, and you dedicate your resources allocation, and kind of build that organization more into data-driven, right? So business strategy, if I look at it, data is the asset what you have in your environment, because it plays a great value to the organization, right? And that's where data-driven concept comes into play to make these kind of business strategy to move into cloud or on-premises, right? And then comes, you need to look at it, okay, what data is needed for our decision making, where it is located, how it is being used today, and how frequently I'm using the data, what I have, because I might have plethora of data available sitting in my IT infrastructure, my business users, right, or my functional units, right? What kind of reporting mechanism analytics are there? Who uses all these kind of data? Right? What is sensitive out of it? How do I secure it? So all of that things comes in your data strategy, and that's where you form your cloud strategy, right? What can be moved and what must stay in your current environment, right? What kind of analytical capabilities you have now, and what are the new ones you want to embrace it, right? What technology is appropriate to support these use cases, what you have, right? So that's where you will define your strategy from a data-driven perspective, right? And I will touch a little bit about discovery, analysis, and planning through our tool. So I want to introduce something called ZENfra. We call it as ZENfra Intelligence, basically nothing but data-driven innovation solution from virtual tech gurus, which helps you to tackle everything what I just briefed about. It's just one-stop shop for all your discovery, where you're looking at all your infrastructure assessment. You kind of looking at the planning, design, your application dependency, your move groups, your application workloads, your performance metrics, you name it. It's a platform which is sitting as a data lake, and you can create packages out of it. You can create modules out of it. Maybe your FinOps module, it's more customizable, configurable with AI-driven capability. A lot of pattern matching is being done. We would love to have you come back to us if you're really interested to see a demonstration of this product, how it is really helping you to navigate through all the challenges what I just mentioned. It's a real-time experience for you to go through that and to see how you can make that transition or digital transformation pretty much easier with the tool what we have built, right? Because we have been working with last 15 years or something, and building all those learning into the migrations, adoptions, and all sort of things. Those intelligence are kind of curated, put into ZENfra, and that's where it gives you that intelligence to you to make those informed decisions for your cloud or on-premises strategy. So it's just a quick snippet of what it does for you. It kinds of absorb all the data what you have from your, it could be you can define your data source, it can be automated driven, or it could be you can kind of upload the logs what you have, your CMDB, whatnot, right? It has its own engine, Zen collector, all of that. It has its own engine, kind of massage the data, manipulate it, and gives you an insightful information for you to create all your application dependency. I'll show you one of the snippet, what really gives you the beauty of your, it goes through this. I'll not go deeper into the data ingestion flow, but really I want to tell you that this is how typically the workflow goes through, and then gives you this fantastic viewpoints for you, where you're spending more money, what is that application, which application is talking to what, right? You can look at a server level, you can look at an application level, you can create your migration wave plans, your run book, you name it. So it's all in your platter for you to consume it and take it more feasible for your adoption strategies, right? It gives you the cost of each of, as I mentioned that, right? And it also gives you your strategical insights about what makes it more feasible for you to move some of the workload into different environment, because it clearly tells you what's the cost saving what you have. So It has got all the things what you can think of from an artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, which is built into without 15 years of experience in VTG. Doing multiple migrations, thousands of migrations with various resources, all that is in kind of capsule for you. Right? So I'll take a pause now. We have what? Katrina, what's the plan? You want to pull up one poll, or, because we have given time for question and answers as well.
For sure. Feel free to raise your hand again or put something here in chat just for fun. I'm listening to you, Vipin, and as I'm listening, I'm sort of turning some wheels on when I'm learning or what I had to differentiate when it comes to FinOps. So just dropped a question there, quick one question response if you want. And we'll take any questions at this time. And Skip, I'll open up to you if you want to add anything here. I know this is your topic, as Vipin mentioned.
Yeah, well, what we found in the industry is that a lot of organizations are thinking in terms of either migrating to or repatriating some assets from the cloud simply because their usage patterns are different, or their data usage or their latency is not what they expected. So, don't think of this as a one-way trip with respect to cloud cost economics, simply because there are some situations where either changing cloud providers, changing what level of subscription you have, or even changing the performance level of your existing provider to a more to a more latency driven model is all in play. So the idea here is to get an understanding of everything around what you're talking about from a cloud economic standpoint: finance, business, tech, as well as cost for on-prem services. They should all be factored in, whether the customer is currently all on-prem, hybrid, private, or multi-cloud, because there's a tremendous amount of data that can be gathered, and then we can utilize that to help make the best financial and technical decisions.
Exactly. And as Katrina mentioned, feel free to reach out to us. We'll share the contact details as well to the end. Maybe I'll pop it up for you.
Yeah.
You can always reach out to us if you have questions. Let's see if I can, yeah. So this is our coordinates. Katrina, if you want to take it up this while folks are answering the polls.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm just populating this here for this question on FinOps. It's still a fairly new topic, right? And so just wanted to kind of put some differentiators in there for you. And for those of you who were kind enough to answer or made your way through those responses, I dropped, is this a trick question? In fact, it is. Everyone who answered with any response is correct. So FinOps is all of those things. And really kind of changes the relationship between the different departments and the cost, the resources within an organization, right? So that's something that, and Skip, I know you tell a great story with a use case that we have around cost differentiation and cost centers, right? Like allocating budget to the right resources. And so FinOps is really designed to kind of bridge your financial teams, who's responsible for budget, with IT and with the business itself, right? And it's not just around managing your cloud costs. It's really looking at everything as a whole. So a very holistic view and kind of like a pane of glass where you can visualize that. But we do a lot of customization in that regard. So just wanted to make that a question in here to give some clarity. I've been pinging some of you throughout the session. If I thought maybe you would want to know something further, I kind of pinged you. Feel free to reach out to us independently also if you have questions. And then I think we're going to drop one more poll question. This is designed for us to know what it is that we can cater messaging to you. So if there's information that you want or guidance that you need and resources that we can provide, please let us know. I did leave a lot of this open-ended, so really looking to hear briefly in your words how we could benefit you. Thank you. Okay, so I think he just dropped that last poll. So for those of you who participated, I think that we do have a completion certificate for you for attending today's session. So you'll get that in your email, in your inbox, and you can post that on your social media if you'd like. I know that for myself, when I was coming to this position at Virtual Tech Gurus, all the recruiters told me definitely evangelize your education, any added knowledge that you acquire and skills that it shows your growth and your personal development. It looks really good on you to have that posted publicly. I never did that in the past, so I'm much more aware of doing it now. So we thought it'd be nice to give you a certificate for visiting with us today. And then also, I think we are going to do some gift cards for Starbucks. So thanks for your participation. We really are glad that you attended. I hope you benefited. We'd like to know that and just get any feedback from you for future sessions.